Welcome into OutKick the show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fabulous Tuesdays wherever you may be across the country or around the world. Want to tell you, PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. With PrizePicks, you against the number, whether it's the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs, Major League Baseball. You guys know that I absolutely love getting action going in the world of sports. And I have got a pick for you right now that involves the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs, and Major League Baseball. This is courtesy of Adam, who is grinding, burning the midnight oil, helping to make sure that we've got a winner right now. And so here you are. Darius Garland. He's actually, this is true, going to be my neighbor. New house that I am building, Darius Garland will be my neighbor. Adam didn't know this, but I'm glad we're taking more for my future neighbor, Darius Garland, here in Nashville. 19.5 points, rebounds, and assists more for Darius Garland tonight, Game 2 against the Pacers. Alex Ovechkin, all-time goal scorer in the NHL, more than 1/2 point tonight against the Carolina Hurricanes. Austin Riley, more than 1/2 hit, run, or RBI tonight against the Cincinnati Reds. And Anthony Edwards, the man who put out the Lakers, now he gets Golden State, more than 29.5 points and assists, all right? And that pays off, Adam, let me make sure that I've got it right. That pays off if you hit on all of those, all optimistic picks. That is a 2.8x payout. So if you put in $1, you will make back $2.80. If you put in $100, you will get back $280. And right now, if you download the PrizePicks app, use code OutKick, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is PrizePicks.com. Code OutKick, $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, let's run some games here. Bobby Barack got a good story up relating to this, and I give him credit because he also had the Justin Tucker report. And so I want to hit this right off the top. Justin Tucker was released by the Baltimore Ravens, one of the greatest NFL kickers of all time. He did not have great accuracy down the stretch, so it's possible, to be fair, this is primarily performance-based and not massage allegation-based, okay? But I do think this is an important story. If you are really talented, the criticism that is out there for the NFL, to the extent that you want to make any at all, is not that the NFL is racist or some such shenanigan argument. It is that the NFL will overlook almost anything if you are really talented at your position. And I just want you to think about these examples, right? Cross-racial line examples, even though nobody ever wants to talk about this. 4 different examples involving the Ravens and the modern era of the NFL. Ray Rice, on video, knocked out his fiancée in an Atlantic City hotel. He was, before the video came out, suspended and still a member of the Baltimore Ravens franchise. As soon as the video came out, they kicked him to the curb. If Ray Rice had been a better running back, I think he only averaged like 3.6 yards a carry, they would have stood behind him in Baltimore. What do I base that on? Ray Lewis. The tale of two Rays. Ray Lewis, everybody forgets, was charged with double murder in Atlanta, in Buckhead, after the Super Bowl. They said that he stabbed 2 people to death. He has a statue outside of the Baltimore Ravens stadium. Let me repeat that. Ray Lewis, charged with double murder. Look it up, kids. They actually started the trial charging him with double murder. He flipped sides and testified against his fellow defendants. There was a mistrial, not guilty verdict. I don't remember all the details. Ray Lewis may well have stabbed 2 people to death. He has a statue outside of the Ravens stadium, and he was allowed to continue to play for them. Justin Tucker is no longer allowed to be a kicker because the Ravens decided that he had more in common with Ray Rice, that his problems and the allegations against him were more significant in nature relative to his talent, such that his career with the Baltimore Ravens is over, even though they have a statue to potential double murderer Ray Lewis outside of the stadium in Baltimore. Deshaun Watson. Nearly identical charges as what Justin Tucker was alleged to have done, except far more women alleged it. The Cleveland Browns gave Deshaun Watson the biggest contract in the history of football at that point in time, somewhere around $250 million, and they traded multiple draft picks. Justin Tucker happens to be white. Ray Rice, Ray Lewis, and Deshaun Watson all happen to be black. But the reason why these guys are treated the way they are by NFL teams has nothing to do with race and everything to do with whether their respective talents exceed their problems. And I just wish more people in sports media were honest and would leave behind the identity politics and look at this rationally. The Browns decided that they believed Deshaun Watson was an elite quarterback, and they didn't care that he was alleged to have sexually assaulted over 20 different women. They didn't care that Deshaun Watson paid millions and millions of dollars to settle those charges because they thought, hey, this guy is such a good quarterback, we're willing to take on all of his baggage. Now, that bet has not panned out well. And ultimately now I think the Ravens are looking around like this is the worst deal ever. I think you could make an argument that the deal that they gave Deshaun Watson in conjunction with all the picks they gave to get Deshaun Watson, all of that was a disaster. But the allegations against Deshaun Watson, far more significant than the allegations against Justin Tucker. Now I will interject race into it. If Deshaun Watson were white, I think the Browns would have made the exact same decision. And if Justin Tucker were black, I think the Ravens would make the exact same decision because in some way it is a rational football analysis of perceived value. The ceiling at that point in time for Deshaun Watson was, hey, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. That talent is rare. The ceiling for Ray Lewis at that point in time was this is a Hall of Fame linebacker. It was also a different era, a generation ago. But that's why he got to keep playing and why he got the statue and why the Ravens, you can argue, won championships because they stood behind him because he was the best player on one of the best defenses in the history of the league that would have been nowhere near as good if Ray Lewis weren't there. But Ray Rice, tail end of his running back career, easy to replace. The idea is Justin Tucker, tail end of his kicking career. He was not great, missed way more kicks than usual. Hey, we're going to move on relative to the cost. The juice is not worth the squeeze. This is the story. I'm the only person who's going to tell you all of that. I'm right. Anybody else telling you anything else? Anybody saying, oh, Shedeur Sanders, this is an example of NFL racism. This is why black men are still treated unfairly by the league. Are you kidding me? The NFL has created more black millionaires than any business in the history of the world. These guys would cut their pinky off, the owners of NFL franchises, to make a Super Bowl. All they care about, and this is the criticism that is actually valid, is if your talent exceeds your problems. And if you're super talented, you can be crazy. You can be a multiple felon. I've said it before. I'll say it again. If O.J. Simpson were 24 years old when he had gotten accused of double murder and he had beaten it, somebody would have signed him. Somebody in the NFL would have signed OJ. A lot of y'all are out there like, no, you're crazy, Clay. Somebody would have signed him because they would have said, he can run for 2,000 yards. Downside, he might be a double murderer. Positive side, by the way, I think OJ did it. Positive side, it's really hard to tackle him in the open field. He's probably going to help us make the playoffs. NFL teams are amoral. They're not racist. All they care about is winning. They'll do anything that makes their team more likely to win. Justin Tucker kicked to the curb, same accusations as Deshaun Watson. The reason why was because the Browns thought Deshaun Watson's ceiling was high, and the Ravens think that Justin Tucker's ceiling is low. Now, I think Justin Tucker would have gotten to keep kicking if this were 4 years ago. I think that the Ravens would say, hey, there are allegations. I think Justin Tucker is entitled to his defense. He gave it to OutKick, and it sounds somewhat compelling to me. I don't think he'd be convicted of any crime. Deshaun Watson wasn't convicted of any crime. Talent over problems. And by the way, if you're a kid out there watching this right now, this is a life lesson for you. If you're in your 20s and you're watching this right now, everybody's not treated the same. If you're better at your job, you can get away with a lot more than somebody who stinks at their job. And analyzing what your talent is for your job. Look, the guy who sells the most cars, he might be able to kick off work a little bit early and go hit the bar. The guy who sells the least cars, he's probably going to get fired if he's out of work 15 minutes early. Everybody doesn't get treated the same. The more you make somebody money-wise, the more wins you potentially add to the column, the more you will get away with. Coaches who are honest will tell you this. The standard is not the same for the quarterback as it is for the backup defensive tackle. Everybody knows this. It is 100% true. And when you break all this down, it is, I think, super significant. It is the story of America, for better or worse, and it is certainly the story of the NFL, which in many ways reflects larger American life. Okay, couple of other things up. I want to mention this. People are like, you never talk about the NBA ratings, Clay. What about the NBA? Look, I watched last night, Celtics game against the Knicks down the stretch. 45 missed threes by the Celtics. Nasty, ugly basketball. Penetrate, kick. Penetrate, kick. It's basically every NBA possession is pick and roll, get inside, kick out, shoot a three. Almost every single possession. No mid-range game. You either finish at the rim or you shoot a three on every possession. And almost all of them start with pick and roll action, top of the key. Or sometimes you get a mismatch on a switch. Again, it's not super complicated. 45 missed threes was awful. I think the NBA has lots of issues. Ratings first round, up 6% over last year. Last year's ratings, not very good. Everybody wants to know, hey, well, why don't you talk about it, Clay? Ratings were up 6%. Congratulations to all the NBA stans. You are taking over America based on that. We've got a couple of videos. I want to give credit to Marsha Blackburn. They had a hearing on how awfully difficult it is to now find your games. Ted Cruz, a fan of OutKick. I know he's watched some of these videos. I know that Senator Blackburn's a friend. I know that they regularly come on as guests on Clay and Buck, or they share our content. I think Ted Cruz and Marsha Blackburn have even written articles, if I'm not mistaken, for OutKick over the years. But it's very rare that you actually see the NBA called to task for its hypocrisy on human rights around the world. But Senator Blackburn just did that. We've got a short cut. This was a hearing today on Capitol Hill. Props to her. Listen.
You all have had quite a cozy relationship with the CCP, and we know how they censor. And going back to 2019 with Daryl Morey's tweet in support of the Hong Kong freedom fighters, and that resulted in the suspension of NBA broadcast on their state-run media channels. And in recent years, it appears that you all have patched that relationship up, which means there had to be some sort of deal that was there, and it must have been quite a deal. So since we're talking about broadcast rights and what they're worth, why don't you tell me what the broadcast rights in China are worth, and how much NBA owners have invested in China?
Thank you, Senator. The NBA does have a very long history of distributing our games and content in China for more than 30 years.
No, I'm not asking about the length of time you've been in China. I'm asking, what are the media rights worth? You're the president of Global Content and Media Distribution.
Mm-hmm.
So what are those rights worth, and how much have the NBA owners invested in China?
The NBA does not comment publicly on the financial terms of our relationships in the U.S. or abroad.
Welcome to the real Animal Thunderdome there, the Thunderdome, where you actually have to answer real questions for the NBA. I wish we had media that covers the NBA, the stands that run around parroting whatever the latest NBA talking point is. I wish we had real questions. I would love, he will never do it, I would love to have Adam Silver for like an hour to have a real conversation about basketball, his NBA commissionership, all of it. He will never do it because he doesn't ever want to be asked real questions, but that would actually be a really good conversation because there would be real questions asked, unlike what you regularly see from most media out there. I want to mention, by the way, circling back on the Justin Tucker story, there's a lot of left-wing tap dancing on Justin Tucker, in particular Dan Le Batard, who employs a guy who was accused of wife beating, far more significant than anything that Justin Tucker has been accused of. And Dan Le Batard had Doug Emhoff, Kamala Harris's husband, who was accused very clearly of sleeping with his nanny and also beating a woman up who he was dating. No questions at all about it. So when Dan Le Batard is like, oh, I don't like the way the Ravens released Justin Tucker. I mean, dude, do you not recognize the crazy hypocrisy there? You didn't ask Doug Emhoff about slapping a woman or about impregnating his nanny. You had him on as basically just a fluffer for the Kamala Harris campaign. Let's try to make Doug Emhoff look as good as possible. I'm his professional fluffer. And then you're going to criticize the Ravens over the way they released Justin Tucker? I mean, it's just BS. Bobby Barack's got a good story up about it. Credit to him. Same thing for Mina Kimes. I don't remember Mina Kimes. Maybe she did. Ripping Deshaun Watson and the Browns to the high heavens when he got the highest contract of all time. Again, people get mad at me because I don't play favorites, because I apply a consistent principle. I just laid out the Justin Tucker story as it pertains to Ray Lewis, Ray Rice, and Deshaun Watson, explaining to you exactly what teams are thinking, why the situations are treated differently, even while in some cases they may be somewhat similar. If you really look at fact-specific aspects of these stories, you will find that most of the time people are treated actually consistently or logically from a business perspective. There's no huge conspiracy theory at play here. Most people are treated in a similar manner by businesses which are trying to win games. Pulitzer photo. It's rare I tee off on this. How in the world did the Pulitzer photo of Trump with his fist up in the air right after with blood on his face, I think probably the most iconic photo that has been taken in current events or politics, maybe across the board in America in the 21st century. Instead, they awarded the Pulitzer to a picture of the bullet like zooming through the air. I think the reason why was because Trump looks too much like a badass in that photo with his fist raised with the American flag behind him and all of the Secret Service agents trying to protect him. I think it was too positive of a photo for Trump. I just finished my newest book, and I'm on the edits now. It's going to be out in November. In that book, I argue that basically Trump won the election on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, with the way he responded to that assassin's bullets. How in the world is that not the Pulitzer winner? Because the Pulitzer is basically propaganda. And I thought about this because the Washington Post has an opinion columnist who wrote an entire series of articles for the Washington Post. He was a Pulitzer finalist. And in one of them, he ripped OutKick and me for making sports divisive. They awarded him a Pulitzer finalist. Nobody reached out to me from the Washington Post. If anybody should be getting a Pulitzer, it's me. I motivated the guy's whole column, 4-part column series. Nobody reaches out to me from the Post to ask my perspective. The guy gets to be a Pulitzer finalist commenting on me. This reminds me of when Billy Crystal used to complain that he was going to play his brother on the movies because there were a couple of movies where the best supporting actor in his films got nominated for an Oscar and he didn't. How do you not nominate me? Like, I'm the person saying things that's actually provoking your commentary. I'm the person writing things for a decade that's actually changed more of the trajectory of sports media to bring it back to normalcy. But the people on the far left saying, wow, sports became divisive. Clay Travis and OutKick are the reason why. Are you kidding me? We're the reason why sports is coming back to sanity. We're the reason why Roger Goodell is now in the Oval Office. We're the reason why Trump is at the Super Bowl and everybody's cheering. We're the reason why sports fans are over the BS because we stood up against the narrative. And yet they nominate the guy who propagates the narrative. Welcome to my life. All right, last little bit because I got to do an interview for a Semaphore podcast. Literally as soon as I finish this on the business of sports media, which I think some of you will enjoy. Hopefully, I don't know these guys, but I'm hoping that it'll go well. And I'm about to tape that when we come back. 2 more stories that I think are funny. Actually, save one of them. And Adam, this is not a sexual harassment from me. For tomorrow's show, I need you to get the pictures of the Asian chick who went to the Met Gala and wore the Rosa Parks underwear. She was on White Lotus. I don't know her name. She's Asian. I need to have those pictures of her in the Rosa Parks underwear for tomorrow because I saw this story and I was like, this feels like it was actually a White Lotus episode. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. But I want to close off the show today. Sunday New York Times report that there was a fear inside of the White House about giving Biden a cognitive test. They thought that he would pass, according to the New York Times. Thought. They weren't sure. Like, I would you be really surprised if I failed a cognitive test? I think you probably would. They feared giving him the cognitive test. And what was interesting about it was because the doctor of Biden said, hey, I'm going to treat him like a normal patient. I'm not going to tell you that he passed if he wasn't capable of passing. And I will say one of the biggest story differences between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0 is it didn't take very long for people to start to argue that the 25th Amendment needed to be put in place and that Trump didn't have the mental capacity to be president in Trump 1.0. I haven't heard anybody argue it in Trump 2.0, really. And that's because if you just let Biden for 4 years be president of the United States, there's no way on the planet that you can suddenly show up and try to argue, hey, Trump doesn't have the ability to be president of the United States now. And I know I said that was my last topic, but I do think that's interesting. I want to hit this because Gregg Popovich stepped down, and I would argue, look up the last year that Popovich won a title. I would argue Popovich is actually a great example of Trump derangement syndrome destroying a career, because going far left wing, and we've got to cut. This is producer Gregg on Clay and Buck put these video cuts together that we're about to play. Gregg Popovich, Trump derangement syndrome destroyed him. He endorsed Kamala. He endorsed Biden. He endorsed Hillary Clinton. I mean, the dude alongside of Steve Kerr, Adam Silver, and LeBron James, I think fundamentally destroyed the NBA's brand. And here is the best cuts of Gregg Popovich, crazy man, deciding to go mega political. And before we play this, let me just also add this. Gregg Popovich is entitled to have whatever opinions he wants. Look at where he is for all of these opinions. In uniform, at work, with the San Antonio Spurs logo behind him for most of these cuts. Where he's just sharing his political opinions. I think one of them is out on a stage, but most of them that we're going to show for you here are actually on here. And let me just point out, Gregg Popovich last won a title in 2014. For the last decade plus of the Donald Trump era, he's mostly been the old crazy guy screaming at the clouds like the Grandpa Simpson. Listen to these, and then I will react.
I'm a little confused about our city and why it's Indigenous Peoples Day / Columbus Day. Columbus? I mean, he initiated a New World genocide. That's what he did. And beginning with him, and what he set in motion and what followed meant the annihilation of every indigenous person in Hispaniola. I mean, it makes no sense.
How does an 18-year-old, wait a minute, why can anybody buy an AR-15? I shouldn't be able to buy one. You shouldn't be able to buy one. What the hell do you need an AR-15 for?
So he's pathetic, he's small, he's a whiner, we all know that. But you wouldn't have him babysit your kids. You wouldn't hire him if you had a small business. You want that man in your business? There's no way. But you're going to vote for him for president because he's strong? I mean, Kamala Harris whipped his ass in the debate, just obviously, and he's running ever since. He doesn't want any part of her because, as she said before, she's eaten many of his type.
So Gregg Popovich's coaching career is over, and Donald Trump is back in the White House. Good riddance, Gregg. You lit your brand on fire at the NBA. You haven't won a title since 2014, and since you started talking about Trump, he's been elected twice, including winning the state you live in, Texas, by a record margin for a Republican in recent modern history. Good job, Gregg. I'll be back with you guys tomorrow. My name's Clay Travis. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Remember, Adam, get that panty shot. It's not sexual harassment. And we will discuss that tomorrow. I'm already looking forward to it. Love you guys. See you tomorrow.